Ba-bam. Okay, let's fucking do this. I, if you are fortunate enough to be listening, will be reading the next little bit. What's going on here? Chapter 6, the Pythagorean community. The Cenobites were students that philosophized, but the greater part of his followers were called hearers, of whom, according to Nicomachus, there were 2,000 that had been captivated by a single oration on his arrival in Italy. These, with their children, gathered into one immense auditory called auditorium, which was so great as to resemble a city, thus founding a place universally called Greater Greece. This great magnitude of people, receiving from Pythagoras laws and mandates as so many divine precepts, without which they declined to engage in any occupation, dwelt together in the greatest general concord, estimated and celebrated by their neighbors as among the number of the blessed, who, as we already observed, shared all their possessions. Such was their reverence for Pythagoras, that they ranked him with the gods as a genial, beneficent divinity. While some celebrated him as the Pythian, others called him the Northern Apollo, others considered him Paion, others one of the divinities that inhabit the moon. Yet others considered that he was one of the Olympian gods, who, in order to correct and improve terrestrial existence, appeared to their contemporaries in human form, to extend to them the salutary light of philosophy and felicity. He never indeed came, nor for that matter of that ever will come to mankind a greater good than that which was imparted to the Greeks through this Pythagoras. Hence, even now, the nickname of the long-haired Samian is still applied to the most venerable among men. In his treatise on the Pythagorean philosophy, Aristotle relates that among the principal arcana of the Pythagoreans was preserved this distinction among rational minds: gods, men, and beings like Pythagoras. Well, indeed, may they have done so, inasmuch as he introduced so just and apt a generalization as gods, heroes, and demons of the world, of the manifold notions of the spheres and stars, their oppositions, eclipses, inequalities, eccentricities, epicycles, of all the natures contained in heaven and earth, together with the intermediate ones, whether apparent or occult. Nor was there in all this variety of information anything contrary to the phenomena, or to the conceptions of the mind. Besides all this, Pythagoras unfolded to the Greeks all the disciplines, theories, and researches that would purify the intellect from the blindness introduced by studies of a different kind, so as to enable it to perceive the true principles and causes of the universe. In addition, the best polity, popular concord, community of possessions among friends, worship of the gods, piety of the dead, legislation, erudition, silence, abstinence from eating the flesh of animals, continence, temperance, sagacity, divinity, and in one word, whatever is anxiously desired by the scholarly. That okay, was brought to light by Pythagoras. It was on account of all this, as we have already observed, that Pythagoras was so much admired. Chapter 7: Italian Political Achievements. Now we must relate how he traveled, what places he visited, and what discourses he made, on what subjects and to whom addressed, for this would illustrate his contemporary relations. His first task on arriving in Italy and Sicily was to inspire with a love of liberty those cities which he understood had more or less recently oppressed each other with slavery. Then, by means of his auditors, he liberated and restored to independence Crotona, Sybaris, Catanese, Regium, Himera, Agrigentum, Tauromenius, and some other cities, through Charondas the Catanian, and Z- ooh, Zeleucus the Lorcrian. He established laws which caused the cities to flourish and become models for others in their proximity. Partisanship, discord, and sedition, and that for several generations he entirely rooted out, and that for several generations he entirely rooted out, as history testifies. From all the Italian and Sicilian lands, which at the time were disturbed by inner and outer contentions, everywhere in private and in public he would repeat as an epitome of his own opinions, and as a persuasive oracle of divinity, that by any means soever, stratagem, fire, or sword, he would amputate from the body disease, from the soul of ignorance, from the belly luxury, from a city sedition, from a household discord, and from all things soever lack of moderation, through which he brought home to his disciples the quintessence of all teachings, and that with a most paternal affection. For the sake of accuracy, we may state that the year of his arrival in Italy was that one of the Olympic victory in the stadium of Eryxidas of Chalcis in the 62nd Olympiad. He became conspicuous and celebrated as soon as he arrived, just as formerly he achieved instant recognition at Delos, when he performed his adorations at the bloodless altar of Father Apollo. All right. It's only been 7 minutes. Speaking of 7, let's do chapter 7. Intuition, reverence, temperance, and studiousness. One day, during a trip from Sybaris to Crotona by the seashore, he happened to meet some fishermen engaged in drawing up from the deep their heavily laden fish nets. He told them he knew the exact number of fish they had caught. The surprised fishermen declared that if he was right, they would do anything he said. He then ordered them, after counting the fish accurately, to return them alive to the sea. And what is more wonderful, while he stood on the shore, not one of them died, though they had remained out of their natural element quite a little while. Pythagoras then paid the fishermen the price of their fish, and departed for Crotona. The fishermen divulged the occurrence, and on discovering his name from some children, spread it abroad publicly. Everybody wanted to see the stranger, which was easy enough to do. They were deeply impressed on beholding his countenance. They indeed betrayed his real nature. Hi guys, I'm just Pythagoras. Oh my God, it's Pythagoras. I just wanted some water. A few days later, on entering the gymnasium, he was surrounded by a crowd of young men, and he embraced this opportunity to address them, exhorting them to attend to their elders, pointing out to them the general preeminence of the early over the late. He instanced that the East was more important than the West. Instance. The morning than the evening, the beginning than the end, growth than decay, natives than strangers, city planners than city builders, and in general that gods were more worthy of honor than divinities than semi-divinities, and heroes than men, and that among these the authors of birth in importance excelled their progeny. All this, however, he said only to prove by indiction that children should honor their parents, to whom he asserted they were as much indebted for gratitude as would be a dead man to him who should bring him back to life and light. He continued to observe that it was no more than just to avoid paining, and to love preeminently those who had benefited us first and most, prior to the children's birth. These are benefited by their parents exclusively, being the springs of their offspring's righteous conduct. In any case, it is impossible for children to err by not allowing themselves to be outdistanced in reciprocation of benefits towards their parents. Besides, since from our parents we learn to honor divinity, no doubt the gods will pardon those who honor their parents no less than those who honor the gods, thus making common cause with them. Homer even applied the paternal name to the king of the gods, calling him the father of gods and men. Many other mythologists informed us that the chiefs of the gods even were anxious to claim for themselves that superlative affection which, through marriage, binds children to their parents. That is why the Orphic theologians introduced among the gods the terms father and mother, Jupiter begetting Minerva, while Juno produced Vulcan, the nature of which offspring is contrary so as to unite the most remote through friendship. Most remote through friendship. Okay. As this argument about the immortals? As this argument about the immortals proved convincing to the Crotonians, Pythagoras continued to enforce voluntary obedience to the parental wishes by the example of Hercules, who had been the founder of the Crotonian colony. Tradition indeed informed us that divinity had undertaken labors so great out of obedience to the commands of a senior, and that after his victories therein, he instituted the Olympic Games in honor of his father. Their mutual association should never result in hostility to friends, but in transforming their own hostility into friendship. Their benevolent filial disposition should manifest as modesty, while their universal philanthropy should take the form of fraternal consideration and affection. Temperance was the next topic of his discourses. Since the desires are most flourishing during youth, this is the time when control must be effective, while temperance alone is universal in its application to all ages, boy, virgin, woman, or the aged, yet the special virtue is particularly applicable to youth. Moreover, this virtue alone applied universally to all goods, those of body and soul, preserving both the health and studiousness. This may be proved conversely when the Greeks and barbarians warred about Troy. Each of them feel into the most dreadful calamities. Was he supposed to say fell? Both during the war and the return home. Both the Greeks and barbarians warred about Troy. Each of them feel into the most dreadful calamities. I don't know if it's feel. I think he meant so. I'm not really sure. And all this through the incontinence of a single individual. Moreover, the divinity ordained that the punishment of this single injustice should last over 1,010 years, by an oracle predicting the capture of Troy, and ordering that annually the Locrians should send virgins to the temple of Minerva in Troy. Cultivation of learning was the next topic Pythagoras urged upon the young men. He invited them to observe how absurd it would be to rate the reasoning power as the chief of their faculties, and indeed consult about all other things by its means, and yet bestow no time or labor on its exercise. Attention to the body might be compared to unworthy friends, and is liable to rapid failure, while erudition lasts till death. And for some procures most post-mortem renown, and may be likened to good, reliable friends. Pythagoras continued to draw illustrations from history and philosophy, demonstrating that erudition enables a naturally excellent disposition to share in the achievements of the leaders of the race, for others share in their discoveries by erudition. Erudition possesses Please try again. Yeah, whatever. Erudition possesses 4 great advantages for all other goods. First, some advantages, such as strength, beauty, health, and fortitude, cannot be exercised except by the cooperation of somebody else. Moreover, wealth, dominion, and many other goods do not remain with him who imparts them to somebody else. Third, some kinds of goods cannot be possessed by some men, but all are susceptible of instruction. According to the individual choice, moreover, an instructed man will naturally and without any impudence be led to take part in the administration of the affairs of his home country, as does not occur with more wealth. One great advantage of erudition is that it may be imparted to another person without in the least diminishing the store of the giver, for it is education which makes the difference between a man and a wild beast, a Greek and a barbarian, a free man and a slave, and a philosopher from a boor. In short, erudition is so great an advantage over those who do not possess it, that in one whole city and during the whole Olympiad 7 men only were found to be eminent winners in racing, and that in the whole habitable globe those that excelled in wisdom amounted to no more than 7. But in subsequent times it was generally agreed that Pythagoras alone surpassed all others in philosophy, for instead of calling himself a sage, he called himself a philosopher. Not a philosopher.